Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Excellent Economics. In this video we will discuss about the selection procedure of Department of Economics, Utkal University for the admission year 2019. Before coming to the topic, if you have not subscribed yet, then please subscribe this channel and press the bell icon so that you can get instant notification of my upcoming videos. Thank you. And this year selection is based on career marking and entrance examination, and here career weightage is 30% and entrance exam weightage is 70%. Here career marks, it will be given on the basis of division or percentage secured by a particular student. If a candidate is having first class career, that means first class from 10th to plus 3, 10th plus 2 plus 3, and also suppose having distinction, then he will get 30 out of 30. And in case of entrance examination, there will be 100 number of questions and each question carries 1 marks, and out of 100, 75 questions will come from different paper of economics, and the rest 25 questions will be from general knowledge. And your time limit is 1.5 hour, which is equal to 90 minutes, and for each wrong answer there will be negative marks of 0.25. Now in this year entrance exam questions paper is based on subject. Subject means subject our own economic subject or different paper of economics, and also related to general knowledge. So when we talking about general knowledge, that means that question may comes related to economics or basically related to Indian economy. So Indian economy, it may be in the form of growth rate of different sectors and or contribution of different sectors to employment, like contribution of agriculture sector to employment, contribution of industrial sector, service sector to employment, or contribution of different sectors to GDP, or it may be growth rate or contribution, or question may come from 5-year plans. So these are some of the possibility. And then question may come from important dates like important national international dates. That is, question may comes as human right day, world AIDS day, or international women day, international water day, world environment day. These are some of the important dates. So question may comes from important dates. Similarly, in case of general knowledge question, it may comes from books and writer, books, famous books or famous writer and the books. Similarly, question may comes from government schemes of central government or state governments may comes. Similarly, India's rank in different indicators may comes as general knowledge question which is related to economics. Question may comes from different organization, international organization, it includes the WTO, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, or UNDP, then UNO, then IMF, IBRD, etc. And recent economic reforms, question may comes from recent economic reforms, which includes question may comes related to your GST, question may comes related to demonetization and other economic reforms. Question may also comes from different sports. So India's rank in different indicator it may include HDI rank, EDB rank. EDB means ease of doing business, and now India's rank in EDB, India's rank is 77 in ease of doing business, and in HDI around 130. So this type of question may comes as general knowledge question. These are some of the samples, question may come from outside also. Then coming to our topic, 25 questions will come general knowledge, and the rest 75 questions it will come from our economics paper. So here I would like to highlight some of the important topic of microeconomics, and basically question comes from these topics. Then starting from microeconomics, first is indifference curve. Indifference curve, most of the time question comes in the form of what is MRS, or question comes from properties of indifference curve or shape of indifference curve in case of different commodities. It is by printing mistake it is written as communities, but actually it is commodities, not communities. In case of indifference curve, your MRS is a marginal rate of substitution between two goods, suppose X and Y. It represents the number of Y must be given off for an extra unit of X, or it is known as the slope of the indifference curve. Similarly, shape of indifference curves are important questions. Shape of indifference curve, that is in case of substitute commodity and case of complementary commodity. In case of substitute commodities, the shape of the indifference curve becomes a straight line, downward sloping straight line, and in case of complementary commodity, the indifference curve shape become L shape or right angle shape. These two are very important questions for any post-graduation entrance examination. Then in case of normal commodity, the shape is as usual convex to the origin. Then question may comes from consumer equilibrium. When question comes, basically they ask about the condition or formula. So condition for consumer equilibrium or formula is the slope of the indifference curve must be equal to the slope of the budget line. So slope of the indifference curve is MRS XY, and so slope of the budget line is the price ratio PX by PY. If MRS XY equal to PX by PY, then the consumer attains equilibrium. Or theoretically, we can say the point of tangency of the budget line with the highest possible indifference curve. Point of tangency of the budget line with the highest possible indifference curve. At the point of tangency, slope of the budget line Px by Py and the slope of the indifference curve, that is MRS XY, both are equal or same. Similarly, sometimes question comes from consumer surplus. When question comes from consumer surplus, sometimes it asks the definition, or otherwise we have to solve the mathematical problem and find out the amount of consumer surplus. So while calculating consumer surplus, we have to use the integration, and consumer surplus basically we use definite integral, and consumer surplus is the difference between our willingness to pay and actual payment. So in case of mathematical problem, first we have to calculate the willingness to pay, which is nothing but the integration of the demand function. Then actual payment is price into quantity. So willingness to pay minus actual payment, we can get consumer surplus. Then in the next, price elasticity of demand. Basically question comes from price elasticity of demand in the form of the shape of the demand curve or value of elasticity. Shape of the demand curve means shape of the demand curve if demand is perfectly elastic, or demand is perfectly inelastic, or relatively elastic, or relatively inelastic. Question sometimes comes as the shape of the demand curve if demand is unitary elastic. So if it is perfectly elastic, then shape of the demand curve is horizontal straight line. If it is perfectly inelastic, shape of the demand curve is vertical straight line. If it is unitary elastic, then shape of the demand curve is rectangular hyperbola. Similarly, sometimes question comes as the value of elasticity of demand. If price elasticity, if the elasticity is perfectly elastic, demand is perfectly elastic, then value is equal to infinite. If it is perfectly inelastic, value is equal to 0. If it is unitary elastic, then value is equal to 1. Then the next question also comes in the form of income elasticity. Income elasticity. From income elasticity, we can conclude about the nature of the commodity, whether it is a normal commodity or it is a luxurious commodity or necessity commodity or inferior commodity. This is very important, income elasticity and nature of the commodity. If income elasticity is greater than 0 or positive, it is called normal goods or normal commodity. If it is greater than 1, income elasticity is greater than 1, then we call it luxurious commodity. If it lies between 0 to 1, then it is called a necessary commodity. And if income elasticity is negative, remember this is the most important, if income elasticity is negative, it is inferior commodity. If income elasticity is greater than 1, it is luxurious commodity. These two are very important. If it is greater than 1, it is luxury. If it is less than 0 or negative, it is inferior. Then the next one, cross elasticity. This is also very important, cross elasticity. And from value of the cross elasticity, we can conclude about the nature of the commodity, that in case of cross elasticity, we calculate cross elasticity as percentage change in the quantity demand of one commodity, suppose X, due to the percentage change in the price of Y. Means we measure cross elasticity in case of related commodity. Related means the two commodity, they may either be complementary or the two commodity, they may be substitute of each other. If the sign of cross elasticity is negative, if the sign of cross elasticity is negative cross elasticity means the two commodities are complementary to each other. And if the sign or value of cross elasticity is positive, that means the two commodities are substitute to each other. Negative cross elasticity means complementary, positive cross elasticity means substitute. Now next, coming to production, the law of variable proportion. Most of the time question comes in the form of, if you will get any question from law of variable proportion, then that will be related to any stages of production. And in case of law of variable proportion, there are 3 stages of production known as stages of increasing return, stages of decreasing return, and stages of negative return. And in the first stage, stages of increasing return, our total product, it increases at an increasing rate, marginal product also increases, average product also increases, and marginal product is greater than average product. In the second stage, our total product, it increases but at a diminishing rate, marginal product fall but remain positive, and average product, it also diminishes but average product become greater than marginal product. And a rational producer, it produces in the second stages of production. And in the third stage, in the negative return, total product diminishes or falls, and marginal product becomes negative, and average product diminishes but remain positive. So if we remember these 3 stages, then we can answer any one question if comes from law of variable proportion. Then laws of return to scale. There are also law of variable proportion is applicable in case of short run or short run production function. Law of return to scale, it is related to long run production function. In the short run production function, here some factors are fixed while some factors are variable, and in case of long run production function, all factors become variable factors of production. So return to scale refers to the change in output as all factors changes by a given proportion. And there are also three types of return to scale. Return to scale, it may be increasing return to scale, it may be constant return to scale or it may be diminishing return to scale. Increasing return to scale means if output increases more than proportionately than increase in input, then we call it increasing return to scale. Means if suppose input increases by 20% but output increases by more than 20, then we call it increasing return. And then constant return means if output increases by the same proportion as input, means a 20% increase in input leads to 20% increase in output, then it is constant return to scale. And diminishing return to scale means if output increases less than proportionately then increase in input. That means suppose output increases by suppose input increases by 20%, but it leads to increase in output by less than 20%. That means here law of diminishing return to scale operates. Now the degree of homogeneity and the return to scale, if the degree of homogeneity is equal to 1, then we call it constant return to scale. If degree of homogeneity is less than 1, it is decreasing return to scale, and degree of homogeneity is greater than 1 means it is increasing return to scale. Now isoquant it shows the combination of two factors which give same level of output, and the shape of the or property of isoquant is same as the property of indifference curve, and the shape of the isoquant is also same. And here the slope of the isoquant, it is called MRTS, marginal rate of technical substitution. And the next concept, producer equilibrium. The producer equilibrium's condition is that slope of the isoquant, that is MRTS LK, must be equal to slope of the isocost line, and the slope of the isocost line is represented by wage interest ratio W by R ratio. So a producer is an equilibrium or the least cost combination, it is also called least cost combination, is attained at the point where slope of the isoquant is equal to the slope of the isocost line, that is MRTS LK must be equal to wage rental ratio. Then next one is cost, theory of cost. Now coming to theory of cost, most of the time question comes related to shape of different cost curves and their interrelationship. And as we know, total cost, it is the combination of total fixed cost and total variable cost, and the total fixed cost, it is a straight line parallel to the output axis. Total fixed cost TFC is a straight line, and TVC curve an inverse S shape which reflects TVC, total variable cost curve. The shape of the total variable cost curve is an inverse S shape curve which reflects the law of variable proportion. So TFC is a horizontal straight line and TVC is inverted S shape curve. Then what is AFC, average fixed cost? Average fixed cost is total fixed cost divided by X or quantity or output, and similarly average variable cost is total variable cost divided by output or quantity. And an important question is that average fixed cost, shape of the average fixed cost, and shape of the average fixed cost is rectangular hyperbola. That is very important for entrance examination. Shape of the AFC, average fixed cost, is rectangular hyperbola, and shape of MC, marginal cost curve, shape of SC, average cost curve, shape of FVC, average variable cost curve, all are U shape. Only the shape of TC and TVC is inverted or inverse S shape, and the shape of AFC is rectangular hyperbola. Here the most important question is shape of AFC is rectangular hyperbola. And the relationship, there exists a relationship between AC and MC, that AC cut the MC cut the AC and FVC at the lowest point, or we can say MC cut the AC and FVC at their lowest point. Marginal cost cuts the average cost and average variable cost at their lowest point, so long as MC lies above AC. So long as MC lies above AC, AC is falling, and so long as MC lies below AC, so long as MC lies below AC, AC is falling, and so long as MC lies above AC, AC is rising. Then the long run cost curve, it is called a planning curve, and also long run cost curves are called planning curve, and the long run average cost curve, it is derived from the short run average cost curve. And the long run average cost curve is also U-shape, and it is called envelope curve because it involves all the short run cost curve, and which is reflecting the law of return to scale. Now sometimes question comes from types of cost like real cost, opportunity cost. These are the most important so far as PG entrance is concerned. Real cost means the pain and sacrifice undergone by a producer are called real cost, and opportunity cost means the next best alternative that is sacrificed. So these are some of the important types of cost which comes in entrance examinations. Then if it comes to perfect competition, in case of perfect competition or market structure, sometimes questions comes from the assumption or characteristics or feature of perfect competition, and a market is called perfect competitive market if it satisfies some condition like large number of buyer and seller, product homogeneity, free entry and exit of firm, profit maximization objectives, no government regulation, perfect mobility of factors of production, perfect knowledge about the market condition. And in case of perfect competition, the individual firm is a price taker, and demand curve is perfectly elastic or infinitely elastic. These two are important questions. Demand curve is infinitely elastic or perfectly elastic. And here the equilibrium condition is MC must be equal to MR, and slope of MC must be greater than slope of MR, or MC must cut MR from below. To equilibrium condition, MC must be equal to MR, and then MC must cut the MR from below, or slope of MC must be greater than slope of MR. These are two equilibrium conditions. Now then shutdown point, the point at which the firm covers its AVC, average variable cost, is called closing down point or shutdown point. The point at which the firm covers its average variable cost, it is called the shutdown point or closing down point. And the supply curve of firms is that the upward portion of marginal cost curve. In case of perfect competition, the upward portion of the marginal cost curve above the minimum point of AVC is called the supply curve. Remember, this is an important question. Supply curve of a firm under competitive condition. Supply curve is the upward portion of MC above the short run average variable cost. And short run industry supply curve is a horizontal addition of supply curve of firms. Then in the long run, all firms they will get only normal profit, so there will be no further entry and exit into the firms. And in the long run, the supply curve of industry, it depends on the cost condition. In case of constant cost condition, the long run industry supply curve is a straight line parallel to the output axis. Remember, in case of constant cost industry, long run industry supply curve is a straight line parallel to the output axis. Similarly, in case of increasing cost industry, the supply curve is a upward sloping curve, and in case of decreasing cost industry, the supply curve is a downward sloping curve. Now coming to monopoly. Monopoly is a market. Monopoly is a market structure in which there is a single seller and there are no close substitute for the commodity it produces, and there are barriers to entry. So monopoly means a single seller which produces the commodity which has no close substitute, and there are barriers to entry. And equilibrium condition is same as in perfect competition. MC must be equal to MR. MC must cut the MR from below. Another important question in case of monopoly is that monopoly is having no supply curve. In monopoly market there are no supply curve, since there is no one-to-one relationship between price and quantity supplied in monopoly market, so there is no supply curve. This is an important question. There is no supply curve in monopoly market. Now coming to equilibrium condition, MC equal to MR and slope of MC must be greater than slope of MR. Then next, price discrimination. Price discrimination, or the degree of price discrimination. Price discrimination means when we sell the same product, when a producer sells the same product at different price to different buyer, then we call it price discrimination. And there are 3 degrees of price discrimination: first degree, second degree, third degree. In case of first degree price discrimination, the monopolists sell each unit of the goods at different price to different seller, each unit at different price to different sellers. And these degrees, these are given by A.C. Pigou, neoclassical economist A.C. Pigou. So in the first degree, different prices are sold at different units are sold at different price to different buyers. And here the exploitation is maximum, or the monopolist receive the maximum or the entire consumer surplus. So exploitation is maximum in case of first degree monopoly. And in case of second degree, the monopolists sell at more than 2 prices. When the monopolists sell at more than 2 prices, we call it second degree price discrimination. And here consumer surplus received by the monopolist only a larger portion of the consumer surplus received by the monopolist. In case of third degree, the monopolist sell at 2 market at 2 prices, and a part of consumer surplus is received by the monopolist. In case of third degree, the monopolist sell at 2 different prices in 2 market. And this degree of monopoly, it is given by neoclassical economist A.C. Pigou. And an important question is that in case of price discrimination, sometimes question comes under which condition price discrimination is possible and profitable. And here the answer is price discrimination is possible and profitable only when the price elasticities are different in different markets. Price elasticity must be different in different sub-market. Price elasticities must be different in different sub-market. And the price elasticity and discriminatory monopolies will charge higher price where it is less elastic, and will charge less price where it is elastic. So a monopolist will charge higher price where demand is less elastic, and will charge less price where demand is more elastic. This is an important question: under which condition price discrimination is profitable and possible and profitable. Then next, monopolistic competition. Here sometimes question comes as monopolistic competition given by, first it is given by Chamberlain, and some of the important concepts are: for the first time she introduced product group or group equilibrium, and Chamberlain introduced the concept of product differentiation, and he also introduced selling cost. So we have to remember 2-3 points, that product differentiation and introduce product differentiation, selling cost and monopolistic competition was given by Chamberlain. Group model was also developed by Chamberlain, and then here the equilibrium condition is same, MC equal to MR, and in case of long run equilibrium, here price is greater than marginal cost. Sometimes question comes, in long run equilibrium MC equal to MR, average cost equal to price, but price is greater than marginal cost. MC equal to MR, average cost equal to price, but price is greater than marginal cost. And if it comes to duopoly or oligopoly model, then Carnot model, the earliest duopoly model, it was developed in the year 1838 by French economist Augustin Carnot. Here most of the time we found a question from Carnot model that each producer, in the Carnot model there are two producers, each producer they will produce 1/3 of the output. This is an important question, that each producer they will found or they produce 1/3 of the output, and together they produce 2/3 of the total output. Each producer produce 1/3 of the output, and together they produce 2/3 of the output. And here the equilibrium is a stable equilibrium. And one of the important assumption, most of the time question comes, that here the firms, each firms assumes that his rival will keep his quantity constant. An important assumption is that each firm assumes that the rival will keep his quantity constant. The second model is Burton model. In case of Burton duopoly model, which is developed in the year 1883, one of the important assumption, most of the time questions from this one assumption, that each firm expect that the rival will not change its price, means the rival will keep the price constant. An important assumption of Burton model is that each firm assumes that his rival will keep his price constant. And both in Carnot duopoly model and Burton duopoly model, equilibrium takes place by using, we can find out the equilibrium by using equilibrium level of output by using reaction curve approach. Then in another important model of oligopoly market is King demand curve model. In King demand curve model, it is developed by Paul Suigi in the year 1939. Paul Suigi, and here the demand curve is a King demand curve, means this is here the demand curve. There is a kink in the demand curve, and there are two sections of the demand curve, the upper section and the lower section. The upper section of the demand curve, upper section of the King demand curve has a higher price elasticity than the lower part. Upper section of the King demand curve has a higher price elasticity than the lower part. Sometimes question from this section, that upper part of the demand curve has a higher elasticity than the lower part. And similarly the MR, marginal revenue curve, here the marginal revenue curve is discontinuous marginal revenue curve. The marginal revenue curve is here discontinuous, and here equilibrium is achieved at the point of kink. Equilibrium is achieved at the point of kink, and it shows quantity and price rigidity. And here one of the important assumption is that if one firm reduce the price, then all firm will follow him. If one firm reduce the price, all firms will follow him. But if one firm increase the price, then no one will follow him. Question comes from this assumption, if one firm reduce the price, then all firm will follow him. But if one firm raises the price, then no one will follow him. Then if it comes to collusive oligopoly, then one of the important form of collusive oligopoly is price leadership. price leadership. Here price leadership concept was developed by W. Fellner. It was developed by W. Fellner. Basically question comes from types of price leadership, and there are three types of price leadership. We have to remember there are three types of price leadership, that is price leadership by a low cost firm, price leadership by a dominant firm, price leadership by a barometric firm. So there are three types of price leadership by a dominant firm, price leadership by a low cost firm, and price leadership by a barometric firm. Next, then sometimes question comes from general equilibrium, and question comes from general equilibrium. And general equilibrium, it can be defined as a state in which all market and the decision making units are in simultaneous equation. All market and the decision making units are in simultaneous equation, or it can be explained as general equilibrium exists if each market is clear at a positive price, with each consumer maximizing satisfaction and each firm maximizing profits. And the concept was developed by Leon Walras. Initially it was given by our Kunnert, but it was developed by Leon Walras. And in order to attain general equilibrium, there are three conditions it should be satisfied. The three conditions is known as equilibrium in production, equilibrium in consumption, and equilibrium in product mix. Equilibrium in production, equilibrium in consumption, and equilibrium in product mix. Equilibrium in product means simultaneous equilibrium in production and consumption. Three conditions, remember: equilibrium in production, equilibrium in consumption, and equilibrium in products mix. That is equilibrium in production and simultaneous equilibrium in production and consumption. Equilibrium in production, it requires MRTS-LK, marginal rate of technical substitution between labor and capital, for the production of X and for the production of Y, that must be same. MRTS-LK for X, MRTS-LK for Y, that must be same, and also must be equal to wage interest ratio. MRTS-LK of X must be equal to MRTS-LK of Y, must be equal to wage interest ratio. Equilibrium in consumption, it requires MRS, marginal rate of substitution between X and Y, for consumer A must be equal to MRS XY for consumer B. MRS XY of A must be equal to MRS XY of B, must be equal to PX by PY, or the price ratio. MRS XY A must be equal to MRS XY B, must be equal to PX by PY. Similarly, the third condition, equilibrium in simultaneous equilibrium in production and consumption of the product mix, it requires MRPT, marginal rate of product transformation between X and Y. MRPT must be equal to MRS XY, must be equal to PX by PY. MRPT XY must be equal to MRS XY, must be equal to PX by PY. And another important concept is Pareto optimality. In case of microeconomics, important concept is Pareto optimality, and most of the time question comes from Pareto optimality. Here we have to remember only the definition of Pareto optimality. Question comes from the definition. Pareto optimal means it is a situation in which it is impossible to make anyone better off without making someone worse off. Again, a situation, Pareto optimal, it means a situation in which it is impossible to make anyone better off without making someone worse off. It is called Pareto optimality or Pareto efficiency. And there are also three conditions, like general equilibrium. There are also three conditions that must be satisfied to attain Pareto optimality: equilibrium in production, again equilibrium in equilibrium in production, equilibrium in consumption, and equilibrium in product mix. Same condition as in general equilibrium. So we have completed some discussed about some portion of microeconomics. It is not possible to cover all the portion of microeconomics in a single video, so we will discuss about some other portion of microeconomics or some other paper of economics in subsequent videos. If you like this video, then please subscribe and give your valuable comment and share with your friends. Thank you.